Hi, I'm Trisha Morris and welcome to Club Scrap, where today we'll be doing the Clipboard Collage workshop. Now, some of you may have subscribed to the Retreat in a Box, and this is one of the classes that is inside that box. And you'll need to gather a few tools, but we'll just go over that along the way while we follow the directions. And let's take a look at the project we're going to be making. This is the Clipboard Collage, and what's interesting about it is that when I originally created this piece, I didn't buy anything to make it, because as we all know, we're developing quite a bit of a stash at home, and it's my goal to help you use some of that stash in your creativity, but give you a template in which we can do that. So without further ado, let's get started. The first thing you'll need to do is print out a copy, or just have a copy on your screen handy, of the Clipboard Collage assembly instructions. This will really help in the process, because what I've done is taken the collage piece itself and separated it into zones and just reviewed the assembly process for each zone, starting with the bottom portion of the collage. Before we do that, to get things started, we're going to be using a 1/4-inch corner rounder punch. Now, I'm using the corner chomper by Crocodile, but you can use your standard, like maybe the original Creative Memories 1/4-inch corner rounder. Doesn't matter what you use, but since our clipboard itself has rounded corners, I'm mimicking that through all of the pieces. So this piece, the ivory print, we're calling it the collage map. And let's just go ahead and take our corner chomper and round the outer 4 outside corners of the map itself. And again, this is the 1/4-inch setting, or a basic standard 1/4-inch rounder. And then you also have a piece of plain black paper in your kit that will be attached to the collage map, and we'll round the 4 outer corners of that piece as well. Now, one of the questions always with creating a piece like this is the order of things. And there's really no right or wrong way to do it, as long as you still have access to the parts and pieces that you need. At this point, the students in my class felt it would be best to adhere the collage map to the black nesting paper. So we're going to go ahead and do this, even though it departs slightly from the original copy of the instructions. To adhere this, I'm simply using my favorite type of adhesive, the ATG. And you can also use bookbinding glue if you wanted to, and you could also skip this step, and if you wanted to swap collages in and out of the black paper, but now I have my collage map adhered to the black nesting mat. My 4 outer corners are rounded. Now, I've gone ahead for you, because I care about you, and I've trimmed apart all of the little paper base components for each zone of the map. And I have written labels for each little area here to help me figure out where the pieces are placed. So there should be a package of paper in your kit, all these little tiny pieces. And I think it's pretty obvious how I've named the colors, so you should be able to find homes for them. So here it says 4x1 dark brown, and lo and behold, there it fits. There should be another dark brown spot that fits there. Parchment. Then we have some craft papers here. It's just kind of a matter of finding what fits where and making sure it fits correctly. And then we have cement. And then we have a paper I've called Dottie for obvious reasons. And lo and behold, there all of the framework is set up for our original collage piece. Now, to go with the flow here of rounded corners, we now can identify the 4 pieces that are on the outside corner of your collage. So I'll take my punch once again, making sure that if you want the textured or the dotty side of this paper facing up, make sure you punch the correct corner. So that will be replaced there. Then with this long skinny parchment piece, punch that, the outside corner of this craft piece, and the outside corner of the large craft piece. Now, when I made these maps, I made sure that spacing would be perfectly even, so the measurements of all the pieces are exactly as they should be to provide that equal spacing. So I've already done the math for you, which is really nice about this pre-printed collage base. Now, the next step is just to add a little bit of color to our base pieces, warm them up a little bit. And for that, I'm using one of Club Scrap's Earth ink pads, or a nice shade of brown, and then one of our handy ink applicators. So I love the ink applicator because it keeps my fingertips out of the ink, and puts the ink where I want it to be. Now I saw some very interesting methods of inking the edges of our papers. And this is kind of a big chunk of class time actually, especially if you're kind of new at this. One important thing is to support the paper with your hand right close to the edge that you're inking. That gives it a more even look rather than holding it away and having it flopping around like this. Doesn't give you as good of an edge. So support the paper while inking all the outside edges of every single piece on the collage map. With all that inking out of the way, now we can start working on our individual zones. And as I mentioned, we're starting with this bottom zone, and in your instructions, you'll also notice a duplicate of exactly what you're going to be doing, and then the step-by-step breakdown of what each individual piece will have done. So we are starting with the long skinny parchment piece in your lower left corner of the collage clipboard. So I'm going to set most of that aside and just keep this long skinny piece handy. And for those of you who've never used one of our handy grid rulers, I just want to show you another benefit to having one of these or several of them on hand. I'm using a piece of corkboard, one of our handy awls. This is a new item that we have available while it lasts in the Pro Shop. And of course, I'm using our 2x8" grid ruler. We also have a 3x14. I like to have several of these on hand because I always seem to be misplacing them underneath my projects. Okay, so this is a 1x4" piece of paper. Our goal is to have 5 equally spaced pierce holes that are 3/4 of an inch apart on this piece. So the first thing I need to do is find my center using the side of the ruler that has the 0 center. I'm going to go in from the edge by 1/2 of an inch. So the first solid line is a 1/4 inch. Move it in again, and we're at a 1/2 inch. Now it's 4 inches tall, so my reading at the top measurement should be 2, and at the bottom should also be 2. So now I'm at the center. Pierce our first hole at center. And then I'm going to go 3/4 of an inch down from that, and then 1.5 inches down from center, and then 3/4 of an inch up from center, and then 1.5 inches up from center. Now I have 5 equally spaced holes. So this is just a handy skill to have on hand. It's a life skill, measuring and piercing. And so that if you're, for example, want to equally space eyelets or brads or something in a row on a page, that's the method that I always use for that equal spacing. I always start from center, work your way out, and it'll be perfect every time. Finished with that item. And now what we need to do is there is a package of all kinds of things. Now, even though I didn't purchase anything when I made my sample and my prototype, I had to procure all of these items for you, and we lovingly collated and packed them at our warehouse. Thank you very much, Deb, and my summer help, because this was quite an undertaking. Inside that little package, you will find some paper roses. And I love how with these clipboards, you don't have to end up putting them into any kind of a page protector, so you can get as dimensional as you want. And I'm straightening the stems, and I'll be using a scissors that I no longer like to trim the stems to about 1 inch in length. You can also work with the serrated scissors, something that's designated for working with wire, because once you trim these wires, it could cause damage to your blade. So don't use your really nice top of the line scissors for this, please. Okay. Okay, so now I have 6 roses, I have 5 holes. We included a spare one just in case one might be a little bit deformed. These all look fabulous. Maybe this one, I'll get rid of that guy. All right, easy stuff here. I now have a 1-inch wire stem on my rose, just insert it into the hole. And then from the back side, just bend the wire back toward the middle. Insert the next one, bend the wire, and so on until all the wires have been bent back. Wow, that was a mouthful. Okay, top hole here, and bending the other way, just so that all of the wires are hidden behind the parchment piece. I'll bring in my collage base, and I'm going to apply my adhesive directly to this ivory piece here that we've printed, not to the piece I've prepared. It's just a little bit easier to attach. And then I'll just center that right into the stitching area. You know, we created this faux stitching here, so it makes it look sort of like it's been quilted, which was my original goal with the project when it started. Okay, next we have this dark brown skinny piece, and in with your papers were 3 different fibers. I'm going to be using a miniature stapler. These are also available in the Club Scrap store while they last. And I love the mini stapler. It's a number 2 staple. And I'm going to just staple the pieces of fiber we've included at each end of this dark brown piece. So this is a great way to deal with all of that big, huge pile of leftover ribbons and fibers in your stash. I think most of us have them. And just so that you know, as I'm working on this, when I originally designed the project, I don't know what your home decor color is or your favorite color, so I went with a completely neutral palette. And I can't wait to show you at the end of our class some of the variations that we came up with to highlight some favorite colors. All right, I have 3 staples at each end, and I clearly have some excess, so I'll just take my scissors and trim that all away. And now I have another completed area of my clipboard. So with my ATG, I will attach another piece to the collage. All right, next, these 2 other pieces at the bottom, those can also be adhered at this time because we're not really going to be doing any stapling or piercing or any other problematic items, and the edges have already been inked, so that part is done and complete. Okay, now I want to introduce you to a new little guy. It's my favorite thing ever in the history of all time. Maybe not, I don't know. My family, my favorite thing ever in the history of all time. All right, so this is a little die cut. Now, if you happen to have Thinlit dies that have letters or shapes or whatever, these are great things you can utilize and add to your collages that you do at home on your own. And I'm simply going to adhere this to my collage. And sometimes the words adhering to a collage, a piece this size, that makes me crazy. But to assist in reducing the frustration, we now have a refillable needle tip glue applicator. So if you subscribe to the Retreat in the Box, this little gem will be included right in your kit. You also received a 2-ounce bottle of our famous bookbinding glue. So remove the cap and squeeze some of our glue into this bottle, which is refillable. And then you can dispense a very, very thin little line of our adhesive onto that piece. If you were a member back last August for the Woven Strands kit, we sent you a tweezers in that kit called Woven Strands, and we actually used these during class, and that really helped for placing items where we wanted them to live. So I'm just adhering my hello to the collage, and right next to it, we're going to be adding a metal leaf. Now, there's another little pack of embellishments that my staff absolutely loved collating for you. Yeah, right. And there's this really cool metal leaf there. Once again, we'll be adhering that with our bookbinding glue. So if you don't have a stash of this bookbinding glue, you will get a 2-ounce bottle if you subscribe to the Retreat in a Box, which I want to encourage you to do if you're unable to make it to the retreat in Wisconsin every year. The Retreat in the Box is like the second, 10th best thing. It's a lot of fun. All right, so now I have my metal leaf prepared, and that bookbinding glue is perfect for attaching metal to paper, really virtually anything. Okay, that area is sort of done. There's another element we'll be adding a little bit later on. I printed out a sheet of cut apart text, and these are just little expressions that I liked personally, and I printed out onto a sheet of cut aparts for you that can help finish up your collage. And you can use stamped images for that, or favorite quotes, or names of family members, whatever you like can go on that. Now this next zone, I'm going to call them paddles. They're little wooden, they're adorable, little wooden paddles. And these sort of symbolize, when you're paddling through life, you're working hard, you're playing hard, or you're focusing, things like that. So there were some words I planned for the paddles for later on, but let's just decorate them a little bit. You know what I have found sort of accumulating in my stash, I don't know about you, is washi tape. I love it, but you always have to remember that you have it and then use it. So here's an opportunity for you. This took a while in class. It doesn't really have to be too bad. But I'm going to place some washi tape onto one of the oars or paddles, whatever you want to call them. And then I have 3 flavors. And so just in case your tape has an orientation, I'm reversing the direction of the paddle each time. So I'll place the text going right side up there. And then I have one more roll here. Now when I said wrap, some people wrapped it around this way, and I would just suggest placing it that way. If you have excess, you know, you can kind of create corners, trim the ends away, or tear, because it's washi tape. You can just do, it works like a charm. And then go ahead and finish wrapping those paddles. In your kit, you also have a long piece of really thin jute. It's one of my favorite things. Like when we're choosing fibers for our kits, I love the jute for some reason because it's thin, you can work with it easily. We can usually include a lot of it. And so we've got about a yard in here, and the goal is to simply add a little bit of this to every oar or paddle, just kind of at the base of the handle. So I'm tying a double knot and trimming the tails to about 1 inch. You know, and I wrapped around there about, you know, because everyone wants to know, about 7 times, maybe 5 to 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It doesn't matter. You have plenty to go around. In fact, one of the cool things about doing this in class was seeing the students use what they had around them to add to their canvas or to their collage. So for example, right in the middle of class, Brenda and Karen, whoever else came in and delivered a little gift. And the gift was wrapped with divine twine, the red and white twine. And so, of course, students in the class took the twine they had just received and attached it to their canvas, which I thought was awesome. Now my little oars are going to be attached to this long, it's a 1 7/8 by 5.5 inch cement colored panel. And to do that, I'm reaching for my bookbinding glue and my needle tip applicator. And I'll just adhere these on there, and if you just kind of hold it in place for just a few seconds, it will bond with the paper and stay put as long as you want it to. Get those raised areas. So I'm kind of offsetting them a little bit. Everybody loved these guys. They will be available individually and indefinitely. I don't know how I ever lived, honestly. Okay, with my paddles attached, it's time to add it to the clipboard. Using my ATG. If you don't have one of those, I recommend getting one and reminding you to allow yourself a period of time to adjust to the makings and the functionality of this. I think we have, I'm gonna just grab the red one that Karen was using earlier. This is what we have available, and the tape is very economical. Sometimes I sort of, you know, for people who've been crafting a long time and still peeling the backs off of little tiny squares, I've moved past that so long ago. And if you decide to make the switch and be patient with yourself to learn how to use an ATG, you won't regret it, I promise. For this next piece, we'll be working with a 4x3 inch craft. And we'll be grabbing this cute little tag that's been pre-printed. We're only using the top half at this point, but you can definitely use the bottom half later. I didn't use it in my collage, but several people in class did, and it looked fantastic. They just trimmed it into smaller bits, and they were able to use it. Ink the outside edges of the tag, of course, and then the tail of the tag is not knotted. So I'll take the thread tail here and just put a little knot. And in order to keep the tail where I want it, I've decided to use my cute little mini stapler and staple the tail of the tag right to the tag itself. Then you can adhere the tag to the craft piece. You can do it straight on, you can do it at an angle, however you like. And since I can, I'll just put my adhesive on the back of this piece, and it's going to go into its pre-planned slot on the collage map. All right, this next piece is going to be adorned with a actual genuine aspen leaf. Now the thing about these aspen leaves is that they're natural, and I couldn't control the width of the leaf itself. And so because I can see it's kind of on the wide side, I'm gonna wait to adhere this leaf to my collage until I finish these other two sections. However, I can go ahead and adhere the parchment. So we're clipping along here on the Clipboard Collage. It goes pretty quickly when someone has gathered up all of the elements for you, but I have to say, I think the fun of it is digging through your stash and finding all the things that you can add to this or incorporate into one of your own. For this brown panel, we're working with a piece of canvas. Now, I had this in my stash, so I just decided to use it, and I'm gonna trim off a piece that's about 3/4 of an inch wide. And I had people taking their rulers and measuring, but now that you can see exactly on the camera what I'm doing, no need to measure. It's just a thin, narrow strip. And what I like about this is I can fray the edges a little bit by pulling away the first couple of threads. And I'm doing this when it's still in its skinny strip form. So now I have frayed the edges. I'm going for that look. And then I'm going to trim it into like 3, maybe 1 inch lengths. You know, this could be more like 1/2 inch wide and 3/4 of an inch long. So 3 little pieces. Because I had these little doodads and I just thought they were adorable, and they fit in with my theme of having a natural color. Fraying the short edges now. So I did 1 session of fraying for all the long edges at the same time. There's me being efficient. And then just had to fray the short edges. Inside your little embellishment case, there should be 3 gold headless safety pins. They look like pears. I think these are adorable. Like if you buy some nicer clothing from better clothing lines, usually your clothing tags are attached with these guys, and I always save them. I don't know why. I think they're cute. All right, so all I have to do is just hook this onto the canvas. Piece of cake. You don't have to worry about where the pins are sitting. I know it's a little awkward at first, but it'll kind of resolve itself. Insert them in. Okay, there we go. Guess what I'm going to use to attach the canvas to the brown paper is my handy dandy adhesive here. It will kind of soak in to the canvas, no worries. And then the pin sort of finds its home and will rest fine onto that. And you can arrange them. Okay, so the pins just sort of stay there, like in midair, or wherever they're gonna live. And then to finish these darling little things off, I'm adding 3 little wood buttons. You can apply your glue to the back of the buttons or the front of the button, whichever side you prefer to be showing. And then just center the buttons onto the little pieces of canvas. Isn't that darling? Oh. Okay. Enter the canvas again. And we will take our adhesive. This time we'll be placing it right on the collage mat because this is a little precarious and just needs to dry. But you know, once it dries, it really will stay beautifully. Love my bookbinding glue. Okay, now we have a dotty rectangle. We'll be working with these tiny little jewelry tags. Again, I had these on hand. And all at once, I'm just gonna take the entire batch of tags, take my scissors, trim off the tails, and get rid of the ends. Get your handy ink applicator and the earth ink. I'm just sticking with 1 color of ink, but of course if you're going to be infusing some sort of a color into this, of course you can go ahead and add whatever color you like. With the adhesive, or with the inked edges now, I'm going to place the tags in on 3 rows and 2 columns. Now, if you want, you can sort of plan that out before you start adding bookbinding glue. Later, we'll come back and add some little words to the tags that I've designed to just fit right in there. Okay, got my 6 little tags here on the dotty panel. I'll add my adhesive and pop that in place. And now is a time where I can safely attach my leaf. Now, a word about this, you know, it's just so close to the width of this parchment panel, and what we want to be careful of in working with collage is tangents. Now, if I were to attach this leaf right here, like so, if you look right on the edge where the edge of the leaf meets the edge of that panel, that's forming a tangent. And from design perspective, that's sort of what we want to avoid. We really want to avoid that. If I bring it over here and the edge of the leaf is touching the edge of this manila tag, we've formed another tangent. So when I'm doing all of my crafting, I'm sort of watching for that to avoid creating a tangent. So once I sort of decide how I want my leaf position, I think I'm going to go with an angle and have it just going into this area right here. I'll take my bookbinding glue. You don't want to use an ATG. It's far too fragile of a leaf. And again, your leaf may be slightly smaller, it could be slightly larger, because it's just that, a very natural leaf. And being that right now, as I'm filming this, it's fall, you could head on outside and just grab one from the yard if you wanted to, if you live in a place where the leaves change. So there you have that, and then later we'll go back in and we can add some other cut aparts to our tags. But the center quadrant, as far as placement of elements, is complete. Now the top area, it's not really a quadrant because I've divided it into three elements. The top piece, I want to show you something fun that happened in class after I go over this whole top right corner. Now here, I didn't plan anything for this particular spot. All it is a piece of craft, and it's the perfect home for a photograph. This is where you can infuse an image of your family. If you're giving this as a gift, put a picture of them in the spot, or a favorite photo that you took of the two of you, or just a beautiful scene, which is what I chose to add to my collage piece. And I'm just going to go ahead and add these other 2 pieces. Now, it's important to remember that you have a rounded corner here, so when you're applying your adhesive, make sure you apply it to the side that is not inked, or when you go to flip this around, your rounded corner might be in the wrong spot. Why do I know this? It has happened. It has happened. If that does happen, just take a sheet of neutral color paper from your stash and replace it. It'll be just fine. So now I have this top area ready to go, and what happened in class that I did not do on my original sample, and this is the benefit of doing this when we do it, is all the things we learned from you, is that there's a huge piece of canvas left for this center area. So I'm going to just eyeball trim this slightly smaller than my cement piece. Great. And as we did before, we'll fray those edges. Might as well find a home for that other piece of canvas because we don't want to save it in our stash. Okay, and there it is. And I think I'll just adhere this with my ATG. Stick it in place. And we're running out of things. There are some shells that are included in your little kit, so you can adhere. I have 7 shells. Most of you will have 6, and you'll use the glue and just place enough that all the raised surfaces of the shell have some glue on it, and adhere those shells to the canvas. You have the benefit of being at home, so if there are more things you want to incorporate from your stash as you go and make it even more involved, go for it. Now you have either the word happy or the word dream in your kit. It's one or the other. And I'm just gonna place it here, sort of covering over the seam, just making sure I don't form tangents. Just try to avoid edges coming in contact with other edges. And if you've ever placed something onto a layout or a card and wondered why it just didn't seem like it was in the right spot. It could be that you've, inadvertently created a tangent, but you just didn't really know why it didn't feel right. That would explain it. We have a tiny little key here, and you'll notice the key has a flat side and has a dimensional side. So be sure to add the adhesive to the flat side of the key so it sits on there nicely. And then again, this is the spot for your photograph. Now let me go ahead and bring in the finished version. I want to show you a few finishing tips. Wow, we really duplicated that. Pretty amazing. I mean, everybody's looked so similar, but yet a little bit different because they were infusing their own personality into it. So I have these words that I've provided to you, but by no means do you have to use them. I just want to show you a quick tip. Here I have the run, seek, find, play, hope, dance on the 6 little tags. Those are the words that are across the top row of my little embellishment sheet. When you're doing this I would call it graffiti style word embellishing, I'm not using my trimmer to cut apart the individual components. I'm using my scissors and just trying to get as tight to the word as I can. So I've trimmed out the first row of words, and then I'll just do another cut really nice and close. Now, before I trim these into individual words, this is where you're going to do a time saver. Take your ink applicator and ink the long edge, the outside edges, and the other long edge of this little piece, because why pick up each individual word each time to ink all 4 edges when you can get these 2 done lickety-split? Then take your scissors and trim on either side of each word to separate them. Okay, I'll just do one, show you how this works. It's so tiny, so tiny. Need my original collage back. Now all I have to do is ink the short edge once. So I have the word play, and I'll take my needle tip glue applicator and my tweezers. So I got the play attached to my tweezers, and then I can just position it easily right where I want that word to live. And because I'm using the bookbinding adhesive, it's a wet adhesive, and because it has a little bit of moisture there, it's going to allow me to fine-tune my placement for a few seconds before it cures to the tag, and then it's not going anywhere ever, okay? So just keep that in mind as you're adding. Tweezers really makes things a lot easier, as well as this needle tip applicator. Looking at the finished one, you can see I've added some quotes to this area. I added a beautiful picture that my friend Mark took, and kind of a funny quote about motivation on here, and I'll let you find that for yourself. Find beauty in the small things, a little bit of postage stamps I've included from the Paris Flea Market digital kit. And then down over here I have the word bloom. I added a full quote to this retail tag here, and then tiny little, I have carpe diem, be joyful, and never give up added to the paddles. So all that goes onto your clipboard collage, plus whatever creativity you want to infuse. Now I have on our team a very talented individual by the name of Terry Zwicker. And after I finished the original collage map and 2 variations of that map, I sent all of that in a little box over to my friend Terry. And I said, would you mind creating some collage samples for me, 3 of them, to make sort of a triptych so 3 clipboards can hang on the wall. And by the way, a nice feature about the clipboard is that it comes with its very own hanging device right at the top of the clipboard. So what could be more handy? Just pound a nail in the wall and boom, you're done. All right, so I gave her a rule. I said, you need to make them, but you are not allowed to purchase anything. Everything for the collages must come from your stash. And what she made was a seasonal triptych. All right, so this is going to be the winter version, and you can see the original. This is the original the map that we used. You see the vertical pieces down at the bottom, the inking, and she went crazy grabbing from her stash and did some beautiful things, incorporated photographs, other embellishments, die cuts, brads. You know, look at how the lettering is attached here with some dimension and some mini staples again. I mean, this is just fantastic. When everyone at Retreat got to see this firsthand, they were blown away. So here's your winter version. Hanging right next to it then will be your fall version. Once again, Terry was not allowed to buy anything, but she incorporated rubber stamps, papers from her stash as well from past collections. Check out this cute little measuring tape across the top. You could use a printed one or just actual measuring tape, because again, you're not confined to adding this to a page protector. Look at that. I mean, how cool. It blows my mind. For spring and summer, she added some citrus, green, lime, other shades to this, stamped images. She did a lot with different layering. Here's a painted piece of acetate that's been stamped and colored or written. Wow, this just blows my mind. So what potential you have here that you can work with these different patterns. Now you have different stitching also in the inside of each one of these, just to add a little bit of extra variety. And then we also printed one on white. So all these variations will be available in the Pro Shop, well, not the Pro Shop, the online store, while supplies last. This one, Terry took it to the bright tones using a kit from way back, some blends of kits from way back, featuring her friendship with her dear friend Sharon, who Terry met at Retreat many years ago. So there you have the Clipboard Collage Workshop. I hope you loved it. I hope you give it a whirl and infuse some things from that ever-growing stash of yours. Should you choose to accept this challenge, I promise it's going to be a great time.